Trollord Games. Join the fray.
Greetings from the den. My camera's off. What's going on? There you go. Boom. There we go. This new Streamlabs stuff, I can't see anything. It doesn't highlight. Good deal. Alright. Almost got it that time. The other one that I was using, actually, if you click it on, it's white, and if you click it off, it goes away. But this one is gone constantly. It just has a line to it. I'm old. I'm old. In my day. Alright, there you go. Alright. Well, we're here for GM's Tricks of the Trade. Looks like we got sound. Did the video run properly there, Tim? Or Chuck, or whoever that is. I don't know who's on the internet. Alright, good deal. Okay, alright, this is all still a little bit new to me. Let me do this and this. I really need to adjust to this. There we go. Alright. Okay, nothing different. Alright. Okay, well, we are here for GM's Tricks of the Trade. And we are doing another rehash of an older one. I think this is number 8 to the 8th Trick of the Trade that we sent out, something like that. I can't remember. I have today much behind my 412th abbreviated or adjusted schedule. We just finished and sent off to backers the Goya and Saving Wren and the deck expansions for the Starship Warden. So that gummed up the process this week somewhat. In the interim, we readjusted the way we're doing things here on Twitch, so that's been a bit of a learning curve for me. Still is a bit of a learning curve, so I didn't have time to put another GMTT together. Should be back on track next week with new and fresh, never before viewed GMTTs. How's it going, Commander Pete? As the Warden is done, and the MTFA 5e is done, and the CKG is done, and the NPC Almanac, lots of organization going on there, but it's mostly turned over, so my time should be actually freed up as I'm taken off of all of these variety of projects. The things that I have to do. A little tinkering. I gotta do the cover out for the CKG, I think, is where I'm at. Get it. Oh, shit. And get it off to the printers. And that shouldn't take but an hour or two. So hopefully by next week, things will kind of ease back into to where they have been. We can start getting regular GMTT columns out and gearing all that mess up. So that'll be very, very good. We want to hang out for a little bit before we dive into it. Let people wander in. Let news circulate. Tim's doing social now, or Chuck's doing social, or someone. I think I might be on my own already. I think Tim was going to be joining me for the stream tonight. I got a new iPad, so I'm now playing a 23-year-old game in my own free time. Baldur's Gate is great. Man, I remember when Baldur's Gate came out. I never actually played it. I didn't have a system good enough to do it, but my brother Davis did. He played the living crap out of Baldur's Gate. He absolutely loved that thing, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool game. Alright. Tim's internet continues to be cantankerous. I clearly need to get a little caffeinated before we plunge into the tricks of the trade. We could plunge into the tricks of the trade now before a lot of people get in, and then we might have a chance of finishing it on time, which would be kind of cool. One of the other changes, we've made a few changes around here in my office. I got a new monitor stand to hold both monitors, so everything's elevated just a little bit, so I'm having to adjust to that. And then I installed a desk switch that controls my light. Oh, man, that's so much nicer without that light on for my peepers. All right, good deal. Let me minimize that. We will give this just a couple more minutes, and then we'll dive into GM's Trends Out That Trade. Got a hound, a pack of dogs outside, barking like crazy. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I think that's across the way. They're all keyed up. Maybe you could make some sort of intro video that can play before you go live. Let people come in during that video so you don't have. I think Chuck has one of those, but nothing's actually happening. It would be kind of cool. That's a good idea. It would be kind of cool is to have a video that just kind of highlights TOG stuff, CNC and whatnot. I'm finding that a lot of the younger gamers who have joined the market in the last couple of years are not 2 or 3 years are not even aware of Castles and Crusades. So we've got our task cut out for us to get that information out to this younger audience. How's it going, tabletop? Many times I think I get here on time and it's already started. Yeah, I try to start right at 4 o'clock, but I don't start jibber jabbering about the topic at hand until about 4:10. Let people kind of wander in and allow me to kind of wake up a little bit. 4 in the afternoon, I'm starting to grind down. These days are, especially these last 3 months, have just been hell on wheels. How's it going, King Kothar, Geek Puppet? Let's see, many times, blah, blah, just beauty shots of the products. There you go. And teasers of upcoming items. What I'd love to do is get some of the art going on up there. I wonder. So I've got. This is going to have to be a little bit. Let's see. Let me do this. I'm going to try to get a piece of art up. Save as. That. And then I'm going to close that. We're going to swap out this Conan cover. Or at least I'm going to attempt to. See how, let's see, what am I doing, there we go. So, for those of you who follow my fiction that I've written, I'm having new pieces done, art pieces done for the two main characters, Yurik and Ava. And Ava we put out not too long ago, and I just got Yurik in the other day. So we're going to do, now I need a little bit of adjusting. I'm pretty sure on the hair color, but there we go, it worked, it actually worked, beautiful. So there you can see, I just swapped the picture out, that is Yurik and his heavy warhorse blue, which is a dun, what is that, a blue dun, I believe is what the horse is called. I've seen it, I have not read it. I will dive into it probably tomorrow. Fridays are usually my catch-up day. So tomorrow, that is on my list along with a few other things. But Fridays are usually, like I said, all the crap that I didn't get done throughout the week. I managed to dive into and look at. I definitely want to look at that. We're always looking for content, so that's a good thing. Now, when I told my friends that I was working for the publishers of Castles and Crusades, I got nothing but blank stares. They're all 20 to 25. Yeah, I'm running into that a lot. I'm seeing that a lot. People just don't know what it is. The younger people don't. And the whole paradigm has shifted. 10 years ago, you would sell books in retail stores more so than you would do online. So if someone went into play, say Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, there's a really good chance they're going to be exposed to games like Castles and Crusades or Dungeon Crawl Classics or whatever. That's changed so very, very much, especially COVID just accelerated the whole thing. I think, one, retailers have reduced their RPG footprint again, but also people can get things online or more inclined to get things online. So they do so, and they're exposed to actually less product than previously. Huge market we got to figure out, and how to let people know about the glory that is Castles and Crusades. Let's see, beep boop, greetings for a few fellow carbon-based life forms. A scroll of the artwork would work. Lots of great stuff to show. The artwork, I think, would be really cool, and that would actually give everybody kind of a feeling of what we're working on. Ketchup. Relish those ketchup days. Let's get them TikTokers on board with the CNC. We do need to get the TikTokers on board with the CNC. I've put up about 30 videos, I guess, or 35 videos, and I haven't really found a good niche on TikTok, anything to kind of to appeal to people. I'm trying a few different things this week, and we'll see what's coming. We'll see what's coming from TikTok, but we're gonna keep tinkering with it, see if we can't fine tune it a little bit, just like we're attempting to fine tune our Twitch channel over here. We just need to we need to just get the word out. That's what we really need to do. Well, tabletop, we can talk about that. You kind of alluded to a few things. We can certainly dive in. If you got an idea, did you ever get my list of 154 TikTok video prompts for publishers? I did not. Now, I'm not sure, you and both Derek have sent me stuff. I'm not sure where you're sending it. If it's Facebook, I get on Facebook so rarely now. We've got to figure out a better channel of communication because Facebook isn't it. Honestly, it's probably through paid promotion, find some streamers with big followers and have them play a session of your game, have to be raised awareness. Yeah, that would be a really good way to do it. Getting other streamers to do it, definitely, expose the game in that direction. But it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. It's dominated the better part of the morning. Tim and I kind of laying out tracks on what to do going forward with things. We've got quite a few ideas. Got to figure out how best to execute them. But that's where we are. How's it going, Cannonball? All right, so let's dive into GM's Tricks of the Trade. A lot of people didn't show up here to hear me yammer on about whatever woes the trolls are experiencing these. Yes, I'm here for the executions, exactly. Like I said earlier, we dove back in time and did GMTT number 8. I think is that what we're doing. Kind of revisiting it as we get the schedule cleaned down over here so I can get back to writing these things. And the first trick of the trade was for new games or con games. Just a quick throw out. If you're running a new game, you've got new players at the table, or if it's the first time you're running a game, and it doesn't matter what kind of game, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, or even what version of the fantasy games, D&D, CNC, whatever, try to keep your goalposts in the beginning very simple. Don't make it terribly complex. Don't make some life-changing or world event, any of that. Just go something very simple, as easy as looting the dungeon. One of my favorites is to escort a wagon. Just something very small, 2-3 hour session, 1 maybe 2 encounters, enough to introduce yourself to the game and your players to your style of running the game, the whole 9 yards. So just keep it simple. I think that is one of the thematic elements of all of my GMTTs. Try to keep things simple. Simpler you can keep it, the better off things are, both for you and the players, I think. Let's see. Maybe more live streams of gameplay and Instagram, get in with the influencers like the team finish to bring people to the game. The challenge really is for the influencers and for other people who stream and whatnot, is to get them to play Castles and Crusades above and beyond Dungeons and Dragons. And so many of these people are very deeply invested in D&D, unless they have a broader gaming persona, meaning to say that they play all kinds of genres of games, like Markiplier plays tons and tons of different games. Unless they're like that, they're not inclined really to do games like Castles and Crusades. So we kind of fall back on having to do it ourselves, or cajole someone into doing it. It gets challenging, but it's a good point, G-Mark. It's one of those things we frequently talk about, and we've reached out to a number of people, how it spins out is how it spins out. I'm also exclusively use the Con Game World RPGA format in game sessions. I accept cajoling. There you go, tabletop. All right, well, we need to figure out how to communicate a little better. I need to figure out how you're communicating with me. Email probably at this point is the best. I was doing Facebook Messenger quite a bit, but since I backed off Facebook, it's kind of died down for me. How's it going, Great Pick? Alright, so trick of the trade number 1, keep it simple. Keep your goalposts simple. Don't, when you're running a new game, don't make it overly complex. You'll tend to trip yourself up, and you might trip your players up and just make things a little bit more confusing. Trigger Trade number 2 ties directly in with that. A great way to get new players is a yearly quick start adventure with rules for free RPG Day. We did that. We did that for 7-8 years in a row. All free RPG Day. It's an interesting event. What it ended up doing is we would send 6 or 8 whatever adventures to these retail shops, and those super active, super excited, whatever collectors are there first thing in the morning, and everything's gone by 10:30. So you end up with not nearly as big a splash as you think you would. The only real way I think to make free RPG Day work for a company like Chenault Games is to get dedicated DMs in their running games, in our case, in their running games at local stores, kind of constantly. That's one of the ways DCC did so very well, just out the gate. We did a little bit different, just a hard slog for TLG, building on our D&D roots, and DCC did a little bit differently. They had a huge network of gamers running games in shops before the book ever came out. So that's definitely kind of the way to do it. But Free RPG Day, like I said, we did it for 8 years running. It's one of those, it's a challenging thing. Luckily, we never had as much participation as Free Comic Book Day. It never picked up. I don't even know if they're still doing it. I assume they are. A very, very close friend of mine, Aldo Chiasi, set up Free RPG Day, so we were in at the very beginning. He sold it, however, to somebody. I'm not sure who he sold it to. 2 years ago, and I didn't even hear anything of it last year at all, and I've heard absolutely nothing this year. So I'm not even sure if it's still a functioning part of the gaming industry. They want the swag for running games? Yeah, absolutely. So it would work if you had someone say you have to run a game to get the free adventure or something like that. I think it would be a little bit more effective. We've offered that forever and a day. It's a challenging thing. It is a very challenging thing to actually get name recognition beyond the small pool that you're in. Conventions have helped. Traditionally, one of the reasons that we set up this Twitch channel is to help kind of do that, reaching a younger, newer audience. But of course, everyone runs. It's just like TikTok. Everyone runs there in loads, and it becomes instantaneously crowded. So it becomes the same knife fight as it is always. The new curators of Free RPG Day, Travis Severn, Paul Butler, and Steve Ellis, have it going really well, and this next one is going to be a great one. Well, that's good. Yeah, they still do it every year. And the Goodman Games free books from RPG Day go like $525 after the event. If you don't know them, I can connect you for next year's. It sounds good, tabletop. I think I talked to one of them after Aldo sold it. I'd have to look at it again. Like I said, Free RPG Day, we never saw a bump from it. We never saw any kind of huge explosion in sales. It sounds like a great event, and it sounds like it's the way to make your mark in retail shops. But yeah, it didn't work so well for us. So I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody. But that's fine. But let's get back into the GM's tricks of the trade and not worry about where Castles and Crusades is or where Troller Games is meandering around the fields of marketing of battle. Let's see. All right, tabletop, fire it over to me in an email. Send me an email on that. Let's see, what are we doing? So, GM's Tricks of the Trade number 2, the long game. So if you're running, I run campaigns all the time. It's really what I do most. When I'm even at conventions, I run my big game at GaryCon. It's sort of a campaign, and a lot of the same players are showing up year after year, and I'm allowing them to play the same character. So even that becomes a campaign in my head, which is kind of cool. But mostly what I run is campaigns that begin when you're first level, and you go through this long half dozen or a dozen arcs to the end of whatever story. So when you're doing that, it's very, very easy to get. No problem, great, yeah. We'll have to save that for Ask Me Anything. And these are conversations I've had for years, so it's nothing new. It's all good. Yeah. So when you're running a campaign, try to ratchet back the saving of the world, Mount Doom, whatever it is from each campaign arc that you're doing. You really want, in a group of characters, to only have saved the world once, not a dozen times. So just have lots and lots of adventures interspersed in your overarching campaigns. And like I'll do a campaign arc that might last 10 games with the same characters, and another campaign arc that has nothing to do with the first one or is only vaguely related to it for 6 games or 20 games or whatever it is. The game I'm running now, I've been running since 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. They're 15th level roughly now. And God, we've been through easily a dozen different huge campaigns. The most memorable and recent one was the Green River War, the Green Wizard War. There's just a dozen of them. And we're kind of stuck between, they're in this overarching game campaign that they've been on since about level 6, and they're about halfway through that. But there's so many other things that they do in the interim. So if you're going to do campaigns, like I tend to do them, if you want to do campaigns, ratchet back the end of the world, saving the world stuff to only once, maybe twice. Twice is even pushing it, but only once really for the same group of characters. Have another group of characters save the world in another capacity, but keep your campaigns kind of focused. One of the things I like to have in my long-form campaigns is having up to 5 world bads, which allows the characters to have choices of paths to walk. One of my current big bads is actually the planet itself. The Ice Age is ending and the waters are rising and the landscape is changing. Oh, that's very interesting. I like the idea of the planet, the huge environmental catastrophe. It's a whole different take on the, on the normal Mount Doom toss the ring type environment. That's very cool, and I love the idea. It's a great idea of giving them different paths to take. That's just good form, because frequently players will get kind of bored with what you've got if it's a huge arc or something, and they don't feel like they're in any kind of control because they're being cajoled in one direction or the other. The more options you give them, the more channels you give them to kind of go down. It gives them a greater sense of empowerment, feeling of control of their own characters and their destinies. So that's always a good thing, to give them multiple directions. This is why Sword and Sorcery is the ultimate genre for tabletop RPGs. Each story is self-contained, simple, and has motivation and character arcs that are tied to the personal drives and bonds of the main characters. Nobody ever saves the world, but you might be hungry and need to go steal some food, or track down that thief who robbed your camp in the middle of the night and kill him in the next town over. Yeah, it's always odd to me why fantasy of all of the genres, and I think this is what you're getting at, fantasy of all the genres, from horror to science fiction to whatever, and superheroes, I mean, it just trounces. It's not even a fight. You're talking, what is it, 90 to 1 sales, 75 to 1 sales. It's absolutely monstrous. People will pick up genre games to support a company or to support a system, but it's frequently not the case it's just not the case that people will flock to doing all of these horror RPGs. Now, Call of Cthulhu runs a pretty close, runs a second. I don't think it's that close, but it's always been pretty fascinating to me that why isn't dragons and elves and dwarves and orcs and all of these things actually fire our imagination more so than does science fiction. Now, horror I can get, but science fiction is really, it's part of our lives, right? Any of us that are even a little bit younger than me have lived through some pretty amazing times, from rotary dial phones to Star Trek-like technology in your cell phone and all that goobly-goop, and it's just accelerating at this point. But that doesn't seem to have the same appeal, and it probably has. There's probably 4 gajillion things in it. Something of what you said, King Kothar, but also guns are a whole different make of armament. You get shot, you're out. But sword fighting, it's a little bit different. I have more goobly goop than the technology. Yeah, I've certainly got that going on. We're slowly trying to fix it. Here's one of the fixes. Now you guys will appreciate this. So, this, I guess I told you, I think I showed you guys at the beginning. Damn it. I installed a new light for myself. So, it's a new button, I should say. I'm just trying to make everything work a little bit smoother around here. One of those, my son and I were talking about this the other day, it's the little frustrations that begin to pile up that create a gigantic frustration. And that's one of the things in the last few years as the Troll Lord I've been attempting to rectify and fix. But I need to fix that. Good God. Alright, anyway, so yeah, try to keep it simple. Try to keep it from doing end of the world, saving the world type stuff. All right, so this next one is kind of a lateral shift. I know all of you GMs have run into this, and the player who wants to argue with you about rules, make corrections on rulings that you've done, or say to you that that's not how that works, that two-handed fighting is a -6, -2, not a -4, -1, or whatever small rules corrections that they want to throw out. And it's, in some regards, this is a good thing because you've got someone who's trying to help, trying to kind of make sure everybody's, going straight and narrow with the game and the mechanics and whatnot. But at the end of the day, they're a little bit more disruptive than they are helpful, I think. Corrections for rules and mechanics are really best left for after a game. Hey, you used that dual-handed fighting, incorrectly. You should have gone in this direction. This is what the rule actually states. Whatever it is. But in game, it's a bad time to do it when they do it. If you argue with them, if you just dive in and start arguing with somebody about the rules or whatever, you're just going to derail the entire game. Because now you're going to argue with someone, you're going to be right, or they're going to be wrong, or they're going to be right, and you're going to be wrong, whatever it is. Somehow, someone's not going to come out of this good, and you better hope it's you, because if not, then you're going to have to make course corrections, and it rattles everyone at the table. It's just a mess. So I find it's best to not argue with people about rules at the table. I will say things very simply like, you don't know all that's going on over here, don't worry about it. I see things a little differently, whatever it is, just some kind of neutral statement to disarm them, and so that you can move on with the game, so that you're not into an argument. Anything to stop the argument before it becomes an actual argument. That's a very, very good thing, because troublesome players can derail stuff in a nanosecond. Same thing for rules learners in a chat during a stream. I'm making an effort to talk about rules while watching a stream. That's just a good habit, Statler. And and you guys know, because you've run games as much as I have, that if you get into a good spot and you're running a combat or a role-playing session or whatever it is, and someone starts questioning you about rules, your mind's going to shift gears suddenly, and you're going to be out of that kind of fantastic element, and then you're going to be into this rules element, and you're going to be probably, if you're like me, you're going to be trying to do the one while you're thinking about the other, and the whole thing is now going to become kind of this corroded process as gears grind to a halt, or the train comes off the rails or whatever it is. So it's best to just not engage until after the game. And if they repeatedly do it, I would be inclined to ask them to stop. Just after the game, ask them, just cut that out. Don't worry about the rules. I got it over here. I can make changes as I want to make changes. Blah 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 blah. 95% of your players don't give a crap, and that'll put an end to it. But whatever you do, just don't argue at the table. It's just it's bad form. If this is difficult for someone who always thinks they are right, you get people like that at the table. I mean, and they want, and it's like I said, I don't think they're trying to be unhelpful or even trying to derail the game. They're actually, it comes from a place of, we need to do this right, but which, on the surface all makes sense, but it can have an actual negative, impact on the game beyond what the player realizes. As it can go through, I think it's because there isn't a universality to it. If you ask someone to describe a fantasy world, odds are pretty damn good. It will be medieval, have elves and dwarves and knights and dragons. Ask someone to describe a science fiction universe, and you'll get a unique answer for every person. You asked if there's no codified agreement as to what a space game should be, and I imagine it's because science fiction hasn't had its version of Lord of the Rings or its version of Dungeons and Dragons. I think there's some truth to that, but fantasy has, I think it somehow appeals to the imaginations in us as a species, right? One of the ways that humans, Homo sapiens, or Homo, whatever the hell we are, Erectus, I don't know what the hell, hominids, whatever the hell we are, Homo sapiens, yeah, Homo sapiens. One of the ways we broke free from the primordial pact is our ability to look at the world and see it differently than it actually is, to imagine something beyond. And I think that when you get into science fiction, because it's trying to show something realistically, or this is the way, this science will do this, or whatever, that your brain kind of wants to wrap around it. But in fantasy, you can kind of just go. There's no limits. It's sort of like the RPG compared to the video game. I suspect it has something more to do with that. There's been mountains of science fiction in the 1950s and 1960s that far outsold the fantasy stuff of the day, but it just didn't stick. It didn't stick like Lord of the Rings, which actually was buried in, whatever libraries for decades. But for some reason, I think these things, whether it's Harry Potter or The Ring of the Lair or whatever it is, they fire that imagination within us, I think. Could be wrong, I'm not a psychologist, so so I don't know. Quick, little off-topic kind of question. So we had something come up when we were playing yesterday that was like this with differing opinions. It did not break out into an argument though, and we quickly went past it. When running as a combat movement 4 times your movement rate, is there a penalty to AC? I think that means you're charging. I think it's -2. I think. I'd have to look in the CKG, the new CKG, which is at the printers. I think it's -2 when you do a full charge. I think. In Castles and Crusades. Somewhere in my brain is telling me that. Real quick, I want to throw out there, if you haven't already, please give us a follow. We sure appreciate all the support. We can get over here and check out our Patreon account. We've got all kinds of free stuff on the Patreon account. Well, it's not free. You got to pay for it, but it's all kinds of stuff. You can really get your best bang for your buck is over on Patreon. Check all that stuff out. I was told by Tim that I need to keep reminding folks of this because I keep forgetting. But there you go. I think I missed something big. Shoot, I don't even know any rules, so I'm the worst to argue with. I'll be sure that it might be that may be right in the book, but in this world is like bizarro land, which means it is from my twisted mind, and I'm sorry from that start. I don't memorize a lot of rules, so I don't argue them. It never goes well. It never goes well for me. There's a separate action for charge. Say what you want about the movie Bright, but I thought it was a pretty good idea bringing fantasy races into the modern world. It may have been done better elsewhere, but this was my first contact with the concept on the screen. It was a pretty good movie. I kind of liked it. I think the better blending of fantasy and sci-fi is Dune. I think Dune really did that kind of mystical and science fiction together really, really well. And it's almost not even imaginative as much as a religious sort, which is sort of the same thing. But Bright was good though. I enjoyed it. That's the orcs in the police force, right, in LA. Yeah, I thought they were doing a sequel to that, but it never quite hit. PHB charging -4 to AC. There you go. So if you're charging, you could get a -4 from your AC. The guy who directed Blade Runner 2049 is doing the Dune movie. Oh, now that's interesting. Because the original Dune I absolutely loved. I did not see... I thought it just came out. I thought Dune already was released. Am I on crack? I gotta lay off that crack pipe. I see, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. Huge fan of Dune. Absolutely huge fan. How's it going, Sorrow's Tale? I don't know. I have no idea, King. I thought it had, but I don't know anything. I haven't seen it anywhere, so certainly not. And I usually keep kind of tabs on these things. And though Peter Bradley, the art director, he sent over a movie I hadn't heard about women in a library getting in gunfights with all kinds of baddies. It looked badass. He sends me so much craziness in our daily course. I don't know what it was called. And there it is. I don't want to do that. Gunpowder Milkshake is now on my list to watch. It was pushed back to October 2021. 2021. So it hadn't come out. Alright, I thought it had. There you go. So it should be out later this year, 5 months from now. Pushed back to 2047, ironically. There you go. Alright, on to trick of the trade number 4. So this is one of my favorite things to do. I've been doing it since the very beginning. Where you kill a character, when a character dies, whether they're dead or just going negative, whatever the hell it is. Even if they've taken an action that round, as their body falls to the ground, I always give them a death swing. I don't extend that to spells. The spells can be so devastating, but knives, staves, daggers, whatever, shooting the bow, whatever it is, I give them a death swing as they go down. And it never fails to hype players up and get them excited about, I shouldn't say get them excited, that's the wrong way to put it, but it takes the sting. It takes the sting out of the death. So give that a whirl. Just let them swing as they go down. The danger has to be real is my motto when I DM. It should be real. That really, it's one of those long discussions that people have. The DMs, GMs, CKs have had. If you take the danger out, if you're running a game, or if you're in a game where there's no danger, after a few sessions, you're not going to feel that excitement, that adrenaline rush, that fear. There's none of that. It's like watching a horror movie that actually nothing happens. So, yeah, I think the danger has to be real. And it's one of those reasons because I frequently, failed characters, they frequently fall. They don't often go -10. That's pretty rare. But they frequently go beyond 0. And that's when the death swing becomes this kind of extra thing that they can do. And then bring the character back as a LT of the BBEG. I don't even know what that means. I have no idea what that means, Steven. That's funny. I picture Greg pretending a hit took his character down just for the free swing. You know what, Greg? That reminds me, I was doing a light edit on the CKG yesterday, and I actually wrote rules for the floating disc in the CKG, in which you absolutely have to concentrate on it. And I think it said you can't stand on it or something like that. So, so we just messed that spell up 8 ways a Sunday. And I anticipated you, Greg, years ago when we first put the CKG out. So it's great. If the players aren't on the edge of their seats, they will be like, "We're so powerful, nothing can stop us." They just become a bunch of murder hobos. Yes, and you're exactly right. That movie was not that good. I love Rutger Hauer, Murder Hobos, but yeah, and that's just the thing. They sit there, and every game becomes this kind of power trip where you're just setting up stuff to get knocked down, and it'll vary if you do that. As a GM, you'll find that it's not nearly as fun as you think that it is, and you get bored with it, and you get frustrated. And the players also won't be having as much fun. They may think they are because they're succeeding all the time. But that edged frustration is a good thing. Just because, it just keeps people fighting to the end and thinking really out of the box and trying to figure out all kinds of stuff to do to get out of this hole that they're in. It's just, having danger at the table is absolutely imperative. The grape effect. There you go. BBEG, big bad evil guy and main villain of the game. Alright, there you go. LT, a lieutenant of the. Oh, there you go. Okay. I should have known LT. That should have stuck with me. That's funny. Did someone just summon me one murder hobo at your service? It's a pretty good movie. Not as good as I was hoping it would be. Murder hobo or whatever it's called. As soon as I play Spellcaster in Team Samuel's game, he's in for it. Poor bastard. Where the DM gives consequences to all the political choices we make is we have a West Marches type thing going on where we own a keep and a village around it. We have to feed and keep those people safe. Some of our decisions have really come back to bite us. I love games. I love political games like that. I run them. I try to run them all the time. Most of the players at my present table don't care to. Though I think my younger group is kind of getting into it. I love the whole, especially as you get about 6th to 10th level, the whole acquisition of title and lands and getting into, the nooks and crannies of feudalism. I love all of that stuff. It can be kind of, you got to be careful. I talk about it a bit in the GMTT. You can get a little bit onerous with it, but if you're careful with it, it can be an awful lot of fun. And then your character's hobo with a shotgun. There it is, Willie. That's the one I'm thinking of. You can really fire people up. Of course, you got to kind of do that whole mixed bag type thing. I'm a level 10 divination wizard. I feel like we are slowly getting mad with power and becoming the villains of the world. That's cool, though. Because then now that you find that you have this land that you've got to maintain and this keep that you've got to maintain and these people that you've got to feed and protect and at the same time, I don't want to say this, but exploit to actually create money or whatever revenue it is, however you pay your feudal dues, it's cool. And suddenly you can become that guy. And it makes for a much more interesting game. Well, thank you for the subscription, Time Lord's wife. Very, very much appreciated. We need to reach out and get you on the show. We've talked a little bit in the past, but we need to do a little bit in the future. I'm really enjoying playing the Rune Mark recently. Really looking forward to seeing the new runes. Yeah, I am hopefully days from getting that wrapped up. CKG is gotta get the cover done, and then I myself wander into the player's handbook as others work on the NPC almanac. So, and that rune spells is part of that player's handbook. Like after you start killing demigods, like what else can stop you? That's actually I've got the game that I started back in '86. That we played up until about 2004 or 5. We still once in a while. They're 25th level, and there's really not much that is left. I mean, even in the Monsters and Treasures of Erik, which I wrote in order to create more high-level monsters. It's tough to create challenging things. It almost becomes environmentally challenging, stuff like that. Let's see. I think I missed some stuff. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely, but it also rocks absolutely. There you go. It can happen easier than you think. Everyone thinks they're heroes of their own story. Don't they all? Don't they all? I think you really need moral choices at that point. That's always cool. Dangerous thing to water down. You can get some upset people with that, so you got to be a little bit careful next time, folks. Let's see. I know. I'm sure Jeffrey Baratheon didn't think he was the villain. He wasn't the villain. I love that character. Absolutely love that actor too. Just had the great stream in Blue Box where she was running the game. Oh, very cool. I think I saw a little bit out the other day. In fact, we did. I think we raided and I hung out for a little bit and watched it. That was very cool. You've been playing some CNC with Phantom New Jersey, so I'm very excited. Very cool. We need to get just more CNC out there. That's what we need to do. I think that I've been watching a lot of these TikTokers, and they're younger and they're really into role playing and story building and all that stuff. And Castles and Crusades is literally built for that. It's wide open for that. So we just need to let people know. But yeah, I mean, it's perspective. If you were playing Joffrey, you wouldn't think you were the villain. But you know, at a certain point, does the villain think he's the villain? Surely, at a certain point, the villain knows. I don't know about Joffrey, but at a certain point, they gotta know, right? You can't be the good guy. I just want him dead. There you go. I'm actually not a fan of the domain game. I feel the game kind of conceptually deflates around that point, and the journey is so much more satisfying than the destination. Especially if the destination is busting your hump to feed a bunch of hirelings so you don't have to burn at the stake. It could be abstracted in some way. I think it'd be interesting. Yeah, well, that's actually we talk about here on GM Tricks of the Trade frequently. You really don't. I did this once long ago. I got my game all boiled down into taxes and revenue and population figures and crop yields and all of that stuff. And it was surprisingly not that fun. So eventually I evolved a way to kind of just work around it. And for instance, in the game I'm running now, they've created a guild house. And I created an extraordinarily simple way for the guild house to both grow and make money. And it's basically each month they make a charisma check. And if they succeed off of these various CLs that I put on there, they get a little bit of growth, get a little bit of money. And they don't have to do anything. It's just a roll. It's a roll, it takes like 5 minutes. So you've got this. In this instance, they've got this guild house, and they've got all of these NPCs that now I, as a GM, can access and use to bring more stuff to the table, which is fantastic. Any of you GMs know NPCs are an invaluable resource. So I've got that all in column A. Now they've got a base. I've got somewhere where I can actually send adventure to. They're 6th and 7th level, which means someone might want to hire them. And this guild house now is a little famous, so we're even getting traffic there. So having these structures that are permanent parts of the game and permanent parts of your character's background and identity and what they're doing going forward can be extraordinarily helpful. On the other hand, you're right, if you let it, it can really drag a game down. So there's this very nice balance between the two. We've talked about it before, just fast-tracking the logistics of it. And I think it's easier to do than we realize. It seems like it's a huge thing, but it's now it requires the GM to kind of give up a little bit of that control, and they just have an income now. You know, it's not a lot, but they're earning this. Joffrey knew he was the villain. He knew. I run a TikTok competition, but once you get to 1,000 followers, you run a game of CNC for a group of TikTokers on here. That would be kind of cool. Okay, so we came to this point in the game where a pirate queen tried to have us killed by hiring a shop crew to kill us in our game. And we didn't know they attacked us, and we killed a few and basically tortured one into telling us she had hired them. The guy we captured was a wizard, and he was the same level caster as me. It was me, I hired him. And I confiscated his spellbook and was like, he's too powerful, we gotta kill him, and we can't let him get back out. And that's when I realized I was starting to become the villain. Being the king of Opar sounds really cool until you have to actually be the king of Opar, you know? But, you know, what's funny is we had that very same, not the exact same, but very similar situation in this. They were attacked in their guild hall by this thieves guild, and they ended up capturing one. And we had a little bit of debate on where torture falls in, because they're all good characters, and one of them actually has a curse on him. If he does a chaotic evil act, he ages 30 years. so he's very careful about evil. But in the context, the torture worked, and the torture played out. It wasn't an evil act. That's the way I ruled it. But I can see where, because one of the players had a moral quandary with torturing, so the other players not so much, which kind of lets you know where it's going to play, you know, in the big world. But it's that type of moral quandary doesn't jar you out of your seat is a good thing. That where the players are getting involved in the actual role play and the actual discussion of where these lines are. I think it's absolutely fantastic for RPGs. It's really cool that you're DMing, that you guys are into it. And she was like, "That's really dark. You want to do this?" The cleric is the moral compass. There you go. Our divine knight was the moral compass. And so instead, I gave him his book back and befriended him. Oh, that's interesting. I helped him get out of the hole of the queen. DM said my alignment would have changed had I decided. Oh, that's very interesting. So the DM was going to come down on you. And a lot of that is going to be how your GMs run it, because I guarantee you, executing something like that in Davis's game, my brother it would be fine, because death is a part of NZA. That type of death is a part of NZA, because obviously it's going to tie into cultural and social norms. I'm always very careful when I make those rulings as a GM, and I really do try to base it on where they are, where they've come from, and the society that they're in, because obviously some societies will execute in a heartbeat and others will not. It's difficult to kind of divorce ourselves from, you know, our own social backgrounds and thrust ourselves into a feudal environment or what have you. Now the game would be streamed on here, Twitch, but we can do up to 3-minute upload videos now, and you can do unlimited live on TikTok, but you could only do one-on-one games if you did that. Yeah, I can't do any live on TikTok, can I? I thought I had to have 1,000 followers to do a live event on TikTok. I thought that I did. Character deaths should be celebrated. It can be a fun scenario session. They can. If the character's permanently dead, you should definitely encourage them to do something other than just roll up a new character. You don't want to do that. Have some kind of closure for whoever it is, whoever it is out there. Let's see, did I miss something in there? What level were you players when they faced the Green Wizard? I just had the Unsleep Queen send the players to the Harvester's World to find an anti-magic artifact to help against the wizard spell, but the players are having so much fun playing being squirrels on sparks until they may never return to Dark World. That's cool, Doctor. That's very cool. They just did the green, so we did it right before COVID hit, and what was that, a year and a half ago? So it was probably close to 2 years, 18, I have no idea. Time has absolutely no meaning to me. Which is probably why all of our projects are late. But yeah, probably 12th level, I think, 11th level, 12th level. And of course there's a twist with the Green Wizard. It's actually a little bit of a twist in that one. That's C7? No. Yeah. I think that's C7. Yeah, Castle's, no, it's something. I don't know. So yeah, I think about 12th, I'm guessing. This is why adding good and evil to the axis of long chaos was not the best idea. Yeah, it's and a lot of GMs, Davis, I talk about him frequently because he's my probably I've played with him more than anyone else from the GMing standpoint. He tossed it. He threw all that good and evil out. It's just long chaos. Oh boy, they're screwed on hand level at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a tough fight. We've been trying to get rid of her, but she's helped people. Again, we look like the villains. No matter what you can do. Well, sometimes being good isn't appreciated by everybody. So you can go with that, knowing that you have the higher, the greater good in mind. Carry that on, and surely that will help you kind of alleviate your villainous approach. One person's terrace is another person's freedom fighter. That's exactly right. I mean, it depends on where you're coming from, what you're doing, social, all of that stuff. All right, so we got one more here, one more trick of the trade. Yeah, so this is an interesting one, and this is a hard one, I think, for a lot of GMs to swallow. If you're running a game and you've got all of these things that are going on, and there's to do this, they have to do X, and to do that, they have to do Y, or whatever. And as you're playing this through, as players are trying to figure out whatever it is they're supposed to be doing, or overwhelm, or conquer, or solve, or de-riddle, or whatever it is, and they come up with an idea that's actually more creative and better than yours, run with it. Just run with it. Shift what you're doing and run with it. There's a whole bunch of good can come out of this. One, and probably the biggest good that comes out of this is the player themselves feel as if they solved it. They are the ones that riddled this thing out and solved it completely. Two, if it's a better idea than what you've already laid out, you've just created a better story arc, a better, platform, better story. Screw all the adjectives. You just created a better story, a more memorable one. So a lot of good can come of that. It's very difficult to do. A lot of GMs don't like to do it. They don't like to feel as if they're surrendering any kind of their creative power on their own sessions that they're running. But I don't really have that issue. If it's a cool idea and I really like it and it still works, it works. And I just change what I'm doing. I just change what I make it. Players never know it. No one ever really knows it unless I blather about it later, which I rarely do because I usually forget that I did it. But don't be afraid to shift gears mid-stride and use an idea that's better than something you've cooked up. Let's see, I'm sure that's all the villain's character sheet's idea for the greater good. Yeah. Every villain has that written down on their villain card. For the greater good. Yeah, probably so. You either live long enough to die to hear or become the villain. There you go. Is there a third choice? Yeah. The third choice is you fade from memory. What did MacArthur say? Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. There you go. Well, there's truth to that, isn't it? I mean, if you step down from that role, I was watching, what was it, Sons of Anarchy, and I don't want to give a whole lot away, but the two individuals who were running the MC, had they just stepped down when it was clearly time for them to and walked away, it wouldn't have ended as it did. But if you haven't seen Sons of Anarchy, strongly recommend a TV show, but it is not for the faint of heart. It is about a group of criminal motorcyclists, and it can be rough at times. I would say the most brutal thing I've seen in a TV show happens in Sons of Anarchy. So great show, but I recommend it with warning, a couple of warning labels on there. I mean, that's my wizard's goal. She wants to settle down and be a librarian at this great library. I've started building the foundations of this library, but I'm still adventuring around collecting knowledge. See, that's cool. That's the type of stuff. I love it when my players do that. I absolutely love it when they're building infrastructure into my world, I think, or to the end of the world. I just think it's very cool. Whether it's a castle, a library, a university, whatever it is, making a kingdom. I just think it's really cool. It gives me something to anchor on, gives me something to focus on, but it also it gives them this vested interest in the world so that they have more. Obviously, your character, Chenault, your character is got more to play, more to risk, more to, that they might lose, more to lose. So, it took me a while to get to that one. Your character's got more to lose, so I think it's fantastic. It's just the way to do it. You must not have watched Hannibal. No, I did not watch Hannibal. I watched Silence of the Lambs, but I did not watch Hannibal. I just finished rewatching the entire 4 seasons of Spartacus, and lots of good fodder for gaming content in that series. That's a great series. My only problem with Spartacus is that actor, he passed away after season 2 or season 1, and it's one of those. I always like it when actors get a gig that sticks. I think it's just wonderful because I know that actors and actresses struggle so very, very hard out there in LA or wherever they're doing it now, and it's not an easy thing to do. So when you finally get a gig that sticks and it actually becomes a series, you've made it, right? You've done it, and now you're probably off to a wonderful career. And that poor bastard got it, and then he got pancreatic cancer and passed away after season 1. And he was really good. I mean, he was exceptionally good in that show. So every time I watch it, just kind of makes me a little sad, which is pathetic, but that's the way we are. We actually love the infrastructure. I'm one of those players. I love to create documents too, like props, and I actually give the DM handouts. Oh, that is very cool. I've sent a few letters I wrote in calligraphy pen with wax seals to the end. That's fantastic. I absolutely love stuff like that. My player binder is crazy, and no doubt. It'd be cool if you throw some pictures up of it. Yeah, that stuff is very cool. For me as a GM, that's one of the things that helps fire me up, because then I know that the person sitting across the screens is fired up to play. They want to get into the machinations of whatever is coming and build it with me, and it makes it just far more enjoyable than just kind of sitting there waiting for me to say what happens next. Because after a while, as a GM, that what happens next thing becomes it becomes tough. I mean, it becomes tough to keep doing it over and over and over again. So the more players that you have diving in, the better off you're going to be. We are getting some rough storms. All right, so I think we've lost him, who is helping with the streams, and Chuck, of course, we've lost him, but he's still with us, but doing other stuff. Let's see. The Hannibal TV series with Mads Mikkelsen, Hugh Dancy, and Lawrence Fishburne was disturbing, and that is coming from my disturbed mind. You should add it to your Hulu watch list, Steve. There was some great stuff in there. I'll check it out. I generally don't like watching shows that have excessive violence towards women. It just, I don't know, it drives me bonkers, unless it's one of those revenge flicks. And Hannibal, it goes into, Silence of the Lambs walks that tightrope for that, and Hannibal, I just have always assumed goes in that direction, but I don't know that it does. I've never seen it. Yeah, physical props and puzzles can be fun to seed in your game. Yeah, for sure, you have to be an engaging player. I highly recommend doing that. Your DM puts a lot of work in their game. It's only fair to you return it. And, I've done a few of these tricks of the trade actually on players, things players can do to help their GMs. I should do a few more, and that's great right there. Offering props up is just absolutely fantastic. A lot of excessive violence towards women. Oh, that's good. Probably goes back to those Helter Skelter. Yeah, Statler probably does. That whole Sharon Tate thing is just, it just left me horribly scarred as a child. And the Clarice character is replaced by Hugh Dancy, so it was a guy. Oh, no, that's interesting. Another plan I built the entire blueprints to this keep that we had built, and I started building a 3D model of it. It's been like 5 years in the making now. That sounds like many a project of mine. But that's very cool. They're actually building a Wizard's Tower in my Thursday night game. And Chris's daughter has drawn up all didn't do, the blueprints, I guess, but done the maps of it. It's very cool. Very cool stuff. But I'll have to check out Hannibal. That's very interesting. And Kim, that's very cool, these ideas. It actually kind of fires me up to do another GM tricks of the trade where things players can do to help the GMs. Because honestly, for me, and I can't speak for any other GMs out there, but if I've got players who are kind of just sitting there waiting for me to say something, my energy level, I'm like some kind of role-playing crackhead, because if you're role-playing a lot, I'll feed off of it, and even if I'm tired, my energy level goes up, and then I can get into the game more. But if the players are just kind of sitting there and they're just waiting and they're not really doing anything, they're not participating, my energy level goes down. I have to start drinking more Dr. Pepper, and it just all goes south from there. So I definitely feed off of the energy I take, without a doubt. I see it. And GM burn is a real thing. Yes, it is. If you don't feel like your players are not enjoying it, it's hard to be an engaging DM. It does. It gets really tough sometimes. It's funny too, and you'll because you got to run the game, and of course all of your players too. They've got a whole bags of tricks they got to mess with too, from life source, whatever's happening. So you get into this zone of kind of forcing yourself to be fired up, and it gets tough after a while. I'm not whining about it. It's just the way it is. It's funny. So you got to kind of figure a way to hack your way through it. Well, you used to call me a crackhead. I do like cracks. I said, hey, you'll break your mother's back. Don't be doing that. Hey there, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Hey, Alfred, how's it going, man? Believe, Alfred, you're here in Arkansas. Didn't you run a con 1,000 years ago? One of the first ones TLG ever went to, I think. I was DMing a Curse of Strahd game recently. The NPCs in that game are all very dreary and bland, and I was not enjoying myself at all role-playing all of these characters. Yeah, that gets... it gets tiresome and gets tough. The nice thing is, a GM, of course, you can just roll them out. You just get rid of them. I frequently will do that. Well, that NPC's dead. Whatever it is. Just anything to clear the slate, so you can get some kind of something going on. And that's kind of the key. And that's kind of the key to having fired up players. And did we do all 5 tricks? We did all 5 tricks of the trade. Good Lord. All right, let's. I am Alfred in Arkansas, and you are right. It was BurnsCon at the Game Room back in 2000. Yeah, I believe that was, if not the first, then the second convention we ever went to. It was probably the second convention. So Alfred here ran a con. Me and Mac went a gajillion years ago, so 21 years ago. It was a cool little con. Had a lot of fun. And it was one of those conventions that helped launch Troller Games as a company, so it was very cool. Yeah, I do remember most of the gajillions of cons that we've been to. The fun for me is writing these interesting characters I want to play. One of my players loves that. Todd absolutely loves creating. He absolutely loves creating PCs. He's got like a notebook just filled with them. He's absolutely filled with them. They would make great NPCs. You need to take them and do something with them. I don't know what. Something. Can you ping me on Messenger? The email added to send you the TikTok prompts for publishers. Yes, I'll do that. Tabletop. I want to go ahead and grab down the writing sample anyways, but I'll definitely do that. And yes, that was a couple of years ago. I actually remember that convention too. I don't know if it was our first or second. I think it was the second. I think Gen Con we debuted, and then in like 2 months later was BurnsCon, I believe, or right around in there. I think that's how that played out. It's a long time ago though. All right, well, let's see. The world building is the best part. Modules are tough. You can't wing things as much. It doesn't always save time. You have read through it because if you miss stuff, you might cut out an important plot element. Yeah, modules are tough. You really, I hate to say this because I don't do it much, but you really need to read the adventure, the module, and then read it again so that you don't do exactly what Ken was saying there and leave stuff out. It can be very onerous when you're running a module and suddenly you forgot. You're running T1 and you forgot the keep. So it's tough. If you're freewheeling it, it's a little bit easier because you can just kind of adjust on the fly. Any thoughts on a virtual TrollCon this year? We've talked about it quite a bit. I've got some software that I'm looking at that very, very soon, I keep saying that, but very, very soon, we're going to open up and see what we can't do with a virtual convention. I'm pretty excited about it. I've done one walkthrough on it about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I was super jazzed on it. I know it's very cool, offers tremendous opportunities and a lot of stuff. But for us, it's hacking through these Kickstarters. We're almost through them so that we can clear the slate and get on with new and bigger things. These reprints are slowly killing us to death, I think. Greg Stephen remembers a convention of the 1900s, but cannot remember my birthday. Yeah, no, I can't remember anybody's birthday. I can barely remember my own birthday. Yeah, it's exhausting. Dates are absolutely exhausting. You don't want to start a session with it. Yeah, so I need to yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You got to remember the modules, and that's why one of the things we try and fail at Troller Games is we try to condense the modules. But if Davis and I write it, it could be these long things that we got to mess with. The mysterious software. Reach out to that accessible con team I said about in your channel. Yeah. No, it's a little bit different than that, Bifford. I gotta have kind of control over it because there's some very specific things that I want to do, but we'll see. I gotta test it first and make sure it can do what I think that it can do, and then I gotta get Peter Bradley involved. I gotta get Chuck involved. Chuck's already been involved actually, but so we'll see. Do you know? But I'll reach out to the channel absolutely. But I'm gonna be very particular with what I want to do with it. Do you know what I would love in modules that I think they are missing? Combat logs. Well, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Had never really thought about that. That would actually help, wouldn't it? That'd actually give you something to kind of latch onto segment by segment wise. I would have seen the module and it wound up being on 13 pages with initiative tracker, the monster logs, and the stats right there. 14 if you count the map. That's about, honestly, what an adventure should be. About 12 to 15 pages. Now, the problem is, when you print and bind a book that small, you're talking about 8 sheets of paper, and it doesn't bind well. Because the cover doesn't have something to grab a hold of, there's a lot of cracking involved, and if those of you who have seen things that we've put out that's less than 16 pages, really less than 20 pages, you'll see cracking in the spine. So you get into this zone of yes, it's the length that an adventure should be, but it's damaging the cover. So you have to either drop off the UV coating and laminate and go a different route like they did in the olden days, where it's just essentially a piece of cardboard, but even that, you're going to see cracking on the spine. And the difference there is they use offset printing, and now there's so much digital printing, and it prints a little bit different. So there's a lot of problems with smaller. There's a lot of problems with smaller adventures. A lot of good with them, but a lot of problems with it. Is that a creature or combat log with hit point of the monster? Another thing I miss from the old Living City Ravens Bluff days is actual treasure certificates. They were fun. Oh, no, that's kind of cool. I haven't even thought about it forever. And indeed, they fear axe beats, so I hear. You flip it up with art. I have a combat log I made for my binder. It's got all the numbers starting at like 21 plus, and you have space to write the player's name of what they rolled. Oh, that's cool. Comment log must be a baby treat. On that note, we're going to wind down. This was another great Jim's Tricks of the Trade. Sure appreciate everybody coming out. I will be back next Tuesday at 4 o'clock for Ask Me Anything, and we're going to attempt to stay off of movies and on gaming, though, you know how that goes. But you all, I guess this is a holiday weekend too, and we have Memorial Day coming up, so you all have a great evening and a great weekend, and enjoy your holiday, and everybody just be safe and keep on gaming. Thanks everybody for showing up. I really do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Tabletop, I'll reach out to you here soon, probably tonight or in the morning. Alfred, thanks for showing up. good talking with you again after so many years, but very cool stuff. And Kimmer, thanks for the great stories and stuff on your game. That stuff is awesome. I love it when you guys dive into the conversation. Makes it so much easier. I think I'm off to have some tacos tonight. I think that's what we're doing. So, see you in another 20 years. There. See you later, Alfred. I'll see you when I'm 96. Wait, I'm not that old yet. All right, so on that note, everybody, you have a great evening and a great and safe weekend.